Hi, welcome to the Whaliphippo Daily News. I'm Monica.
And I'm Erin. And today we will be introducing you to the topics of developing nations and education, how they relate to each other, and the economy.
First off, what are developing nations? Let's ask our expert, Dr. Buffalo.
Well, Monica, the World Bank, an organization that provides assistance to developing countries, defines a developing nation as one in which the majority lives on far less money, with far fewer basic public services than a population in highly industrialized countries. These nations are characterized by poverty, poor education and health, and a primarily agricultural economy, among other traits.
Thank you, Dr. Buffalo. Could you give us some examples?
Certainly. Some developing nations are China, Afghanistan, Sudan, Indonesia, Bolivia, and Mexico.
China's economy is growing prosperously. Why then is it considered a developing country?
Well, nations vary in the levels and characteristics of their progress and development. While the Chinese economy is growing rapidly and produces many goods, aspects of it match those of developing nations, such as poverty.
Very interesting. In order to get a better understanding of what it is like in the midst of China's development, we're going to look into the life of Hanxu, a girl from Beijing.
Throughout my life, I've seen a lot of changes in China, many of them which have improved the quality of life for citizens. Much of this has to do with the growth of China's economy.
In 2010, China became the world's second largest economy.
Globalization has aided their economy by providing them with a much larger market to draw ideas from.
China has seen significant policy changes that have loosened the government's control on imports, foreign investment, property rights, and other things. This is good for the people of China because now we have more choice in what we can purchase or where we want to work.
The Chinese have also seen improvements in public services, such as transportation, healthcare, and education.
All of these things have been a great help to our country, but that doesn't mean that we are developed, or that we don't have things that we still need to change. There are still 23 million people living in poverty, and the inequality between the poor and the wealthy is alarming.
In order to combat issues that China continues to face, the 12th Fifth-Year Plan, a set of guidelines to follow during their development, seeks to achieve 5 main goals from 2011 to 2015.
Over the coming years, China is looking to increase incomes and standard of living, thereby reducing poverty, stabilize prices, create jobs, and raise the quality of fast economic growth,
continue development balanced between rural and urban areas while being environmentally friendly,
make public services more accessible, increase the education of the population, and develop a sound legal system. And finally, reform fiscally and financially, change the state's role for better governance, and continue integration in the world economy. With these guidelines, we hope to see China make vast improvements in the near future.
Well, it sounds like the global economy is a great help to developing nations. What do you think, Dr. Buffalo?
Well, as with anything, there are pros and cons to globalization in terms of the effects on developing countries. As you've seen with China, improvements have been made. Globalization brings more imports and exports, better education and healthcare, property rights, ability to choose from a wider range of products, competition which fuels innovation and lower prices, a more open media, public awareness of rights, and less violence. However, there are also some drawbacks to globalization, such as inequality of wealth distribution, corruption by corporations, use of large quantities of natural resources leading to a lack of basic necessities for the people, and patents of native medicines and herbs, depriving people of their form of health care used for generations.
So, there are both negative and positive aspects of being a part of a global economy for the developing nations. In the case of Afghanistan, one of the benefits is that developed nations are both willing and able to help the nation out of its conflict-ridden state.
Afghanistan has essentially been in the midst of war or crisis since 1979. Unfortunately, not only has this caused violence and strife, it has also caused the development of the nation to come to a standstill.
Let's see what our guest, Hansaba, has to say about her experience in Afghanistan.
Well, I live in what you would call a slum. The air is polluted, the water is bad, and there is filth everywhere. 70% of Afghanistan lives in slums like these.
Other problems that face Afghanistan are displacement from the war, poor health services, high mortality rates, an 80% illiteracy rate, and denial of women's rights.
In 2004, Afghanistan signed the Millennium Declaration. This was a declaration to work towards achieving goals to free people from poverty and other hardships. Though my country is far from meeting these goals, we have seen some improvements in education and health services.
Afghanistan has successfully doubled their school attendance rate from 1997 to 2002, from 27% to 54% of children attending. Additionally, in 2003, the literacy rate was found to be about 34% among Afghan young adults.
In terms of health, Afghanistan initiated a program for measles immunization, resulting in 75% of children under 12 months receiving immunization in 2005.
The World Bank is also working with Afghanistan to continue development. It created the Afghanistan Reconstruction Trust Fund in order to finance government projects through grants. Currently, they are working in 5 main areas: agriculture, rural development, infrastructure, human development, and government.
There are many other organizations besides these that provide aid to developing nations. Let's return to Dr. Buffalo and see what he has to say.
Besides giving out of the goodness of one's heart, there are economic and political reasons that industrialized nations assist developing countries. For one, aid to developing nations helps integrate them into the global economy, opening up new markets for developed nations to trade with. Secondly, providing assistance to developing nations allows for developed nations to form alliances with other militaries and station bases with foreign countries. These are some reasons that the U.S. gives aid to other nations.
With these reasons to help other countries in mind, let's look at some ways everyday citizens can help developing countries.
First and foremost, make sure you are informed. Read the news on a regular basis and keep up with the current happenings in your own country and in foreign ones.
Speak out about the issue. Tell your friends, your mom, your dad, your aunt, your cousins, best friends, younger brothers, teachers, sister-in-law. Encourage them to be informed and spread the word about how to help too.
Use the power of purchasing. You can buy food that is grown by people of developing countries, like fair trade products, to support their business back home.
Find an organization that you can donate or volunteer through. Remember, no matter how you choose to help, every little bit counts.
Well, we sure have learned a lot about developing countries. Why don't we recap what we've learned this far?
Developing nations are those that often have poverty, a mainly agricultural economy, poor health and education systems, or have endured a political crisis, such as a war. 2 of these nations that we learned about are China and Afghanistan.
China is working to continue their development and growth based on their most recent 5-year plan. Afghanistan signed the Millennium Declaration to show their intent to reduce their poverty, and the Afghanistan Reconstruction Trust Fund gives money for government projects.
Developed countries provide foreign aid to make more trading partners and to form military alliances. All citizens in developed nations can help out those in need by being informed, speaking out, making purchases, donating, or volunteering.
There certainly is a lot to learn about developing nations, isn't there?
That there is.
So, how do we transition to our next topic?
With a montage, of course! Many people say that the American education system is lacking. Looking at the details, it is easy to see where they draw these conclusions from.
This is particularly true in the areas of mathematics and natural sciences. In the United States, only 15% of undergraduates receive degrees in natural science or engineering, while in France, China, and Singapore, this number is closer to or above 50%. Around 34% of natural science and 56% of engineering degrees awarded to America go to foreign-born students.
These statistics are alarming, but will they really define the future of America? In the past, tests have shown that the United States is behind, but the economy did not take a significant downturn when the students who took these exams became the workforce. The United States may seem like it is in a crisis when looking at such indicators as international test performance, but the country has defined this label for years. So, what are the strengths of the American education system?
Well, in the United States, there is a strong focus on individuals. While other cultures emphasize tradition and conformity, Americans encourage uniqueness and differences. The result is a diverse workforce that uses each person's talents. The diversity cultivates innovation and gives the economy and society flexibility so they respond better to change. In the United States, students are allowed to experiment with different areas they might enjoy working in, and eventually finding one they like. The result of this is a workforce that is passionate and dedicated to what they do.
Other statistics illustrate that America is significantly behind. The United States graduation rate is ranked 19th in the world, despite the fact that 40 years ago it was number 1. Some 6,000 students drop out every day, and a quarter of high schoolers fail to graduate on time. Students that attend college often end up retaking their high school courses anyway.
It's true that American education system is not perfect. Students in the United States devote very little time to learning compared to their foreign peers. They are internationally behind in math and science, and many fail to meet the national standards for each subject. Still, its strengths are not something to be overlooked.
So overall, the United States education system appears to be weak when looking at international scores, and it is in need of some change, but its strengths are in areas that are difficult to measure. Now let's compare it to a country with another, very different system, China.
China has been referred to as having the world's largest education system. Can you elaborate?
Yes, China has made great gains in education. Its total student population is over 300 million, about the population of the entire United States. Since 1980, the number of undergraduate students increased 17 times, and the number of graduates grew to 50-fold. According to an estimate from 2003, China graduates 3 times as many students with bachelor degrees in engineering than U.S. universities.
This is only one side of the story. Looking deeper into the issue, we find that even China is worried that its education system is inadequate.
That is true. In 2006, Hu Jintao, the Communist Party leader and Chinese president, expressed concern that China's science and technology development was significantly behind that of more developed countries and would not be able to sustain the economy.
Whilst Chinese students perform very well on international standardized tests, other research says differently.
When the National Science Foundation asked the question, "Is the center of the Earth very hot?" only 39% of Chinese students answered correctly, compared to the 88% of American students who answered correctly.
The results show that many Chinese students lack science literacy. How can these findings be so contradictory to the standardized test results seen in China?
Well, Erin, China's culture praises performance on tests. In nearly all colleges in China, admissions are based solely on the grade of the entrance exam. The education system is structured to produce students that test well, but have sacrificed important qualities in many areas.
For example, the Chinese workforce lacks creativity. Universities fail to produce students with innovative ideas. Employers feel that Chinese engineers lack the experience and ability necessary for the job, even if they've graduated top schools.
In one study, 44% of business executives in China said that insufficient talent was the biggest barrier to their global ambitions. In another study, 37% of companies said that their biggest operational problem was finding talent, despite the high number of graduates in China.
Chinese workers also lack commitment and passion for their job. A world value survey found that only 18% of Chinese people mentioned doing a job that is interesting as an important aspect of their work, and only 23 chose doing an important job as a first choice when job searching.
The importance of tests in China has other negative consequences. You mentioned that the culture strongly emphasizes performance on tests. That must be extremely stressful for young people. What effects does this pressure have on students?
Well, many students feel as though they have to achieve high scores to meet the expectations of their parents and of society. These students invest many hours into learning and studying, leaving little time for other activities. The physical condition of young Chinese people is declining because exercise is viewed as a waste of time compared to studying. The stress of achieving good scores pushes many students to their limit. Suicide rates are high in China, with suicide as the #1 killer of people ages 15 to 34. In 2003, the Chinese Ministry of Health recorded 250,000 suicides and 2 million attempts. In the same year, there were only 31,484 suicides for the entire U.S. population. The pressure of testing also pushes students to break laws by cheating on exams.
So, the structure of China's education system, along with China's culture, gives its students the ability to perform well on tests, but leads to an inadequate workforce lacking in creativity and passion, and puts great pressure on the students.
Well, Monica, now that we've discussed education around the world and developing nations, but how do these topics relate to each other?
Great question, Erin. Education is one way that developing nations can further themselves.
That's right. Education builds human capital, the skills that individuals or groups possess, allowing for more economic productivity and growth.
Studies have shown that people earn 10% higher wages with each year of education they have, which contributes to the economic prosperity of the individual and the country as a whole.
Education can improve the lives of the people and has been shown to improve the health standards of the country.
It also makes people better citizens by helping them learn about society and their individual rights. They can then exercise these rights, which promotes democracy.
It is important to remember that the effects of education do not take effect as immediately as other forms of aid, and are therefore difficult to measure. However, the effects are significant and long-lasting.
Now we've seen why education is important to the economy of a country, and to the well-being of its individuals. We hope you've learned a lot and enjoyed today's program.
I'm Monica.
And I'm Erin.
Signing off.